once was a swordsman called Shokin, who was very much annoyed by a furious rat in his house. The rat was bold enough to come out of its hiding place, even in the daytime, doing all kinds of mischief. Shokin made his pet cat go after it, but she was not its equal. There once was a swordsman called Shokin, who was very much annoyed by a furious rat in his house. The rat was bold enough to come out of its hiding place, even in the daytime, doing all kinds of mischief. Shokin made his pet cat go after it. But she was not its equal, and being bitten by it, she ran away screaming. The swordsman now hired some of the neighboring cats, noted for their skill and courage in catching rats. They were let loose against the rat. But they were not its equal either, and the cats were terrified and all beat a retreat. The master became desperate and tried to kill the rat himself. Taking up his sword, he approached it. But every effort of the experienced swordsman proved ineffectual, for the rat dodged his sword so skillfully that it seemed to be flying through the air like a bird, or even lightning. Before Shokin could follow its movement, it had already made a successful leap at its head. He was perspiring heavily, and finally decided to give up the chase. As a last resort, he sent for the neighboring cat, widely known for her mysterious virtue as the most able rat catcher.
The cat did not look in any way especially different from other cats that had been invited to fight the rat. The swordsman did not think very much of her, but let her go into the room where the rat was located. The cat went in quietly, slowly as if she were not cognizant of any unusual scene in the room. The rat, however, was extremely terrified at the sight of the approaching object and stayed motionless, almost stupefied in the corner. The cat almost nonchalantly went in for the rat and came out carrying it by the neck.
In the evening, all the cats who had participated in the rat catching had a grand session at Shokin's house and respectfully asked the great cat to take the seat of honor. The black cat came forward and said,
Ready?
I'm a black cat. I'm able to myself a view of becoming a great. I'm a black cat. I was born in a family gifted for a skill of the art. Since I'm my killing days, I have trained myself with a view of becoming a great rat catcher. I'm able to leap over the screen as high as 7 feet. I know how to squeeze myself through a tiny hole, which allows a rat only. I'm proficient in my performing all kinds of acrobats. I'm also clever than myself as a rat thinks that I'm sound asleep. But I know how to strike and them as soon as they come with my reach. Even though running over the beam cannot escape me. It is really a shame that I had the retreat before that all that day.
What you have learned is the technique of the art. Your mind is ever conscious of planning how to combat the opponent. The reason why the ancient masters devised the technique is to acquaint us with the proper method of accomplishing the work, and the method is naturally simple and effective, implying all the essential points of the art. Those who follow the master fail to grasp his principle and are too busily occupied with improving their technical cleverness and manipulatory skill. The end is achieved and cleverness attains its highest efficiency, but what does it all amount to? Cleverness is an activity of the mind, no doubt, but it must be in accordance with the way. When the latter is neglected and mere cleverness is aimed at, it diverges and is apt to be abused. This is to be remembered well in the art of fighting.
I am Tiger Cat. To my mind, what is important in the art of fighting in the spirit. I have long trained myself in its cultivation and development, and I am now in possession of the strongest spirit which fill up the heaven and the earth. When I face an opponent, my spirit is already on him, and victory is on my side. If a rat should run over a beam, I would just glaze at him intensely with all my spirit strength. And he is sure to fall by himself from the height and be my prisoner. But that mystery old rat move along without leaving a shadow. The reason is beyond me, old grand cat.
You know how to make the most of your psychic powers, but the very fact of your being conscious of it works against you. Your strong psyche stands opposed to the opponent's, and you can never be sure of yours being stronger than his, for there is always a possibility of its being surpassed. You may feel as if your active, vigorous psyche were filling the universe, but it is not the spirit itself. It is no more than its shadowy image. It may resemble Mencius Kozen no Ki, but in reality it is not. Mencius Chi, spirit, as we know, is bright and illuminating, and for this reason, full of vigor, whereas yours gains vigor owing to conditions. Because of this difference in origin, there is a difference in its operation. The one is a great river, incessantly flowing, and the other is a temporary flood after a heavy rainfall, soon exhausted when it encounters a mightier onrush. A desperate rat often proves stronger than an attacking cat. It has been cornered. The fight is for life and death, and the desperate victim harbors no desire to escape unhurt. Its mental attitude defies every possible danger which may come upon it. Its whole being incarnates fighting chi, and no cats can withstand its steel-like resistance.
As you tell us, a psyche, however strong, is always accompanied by a shadow, and the enemy is sure to take advantage of this shadow, though it may be a faintest one. I have for a long time disciplined myself in that way, not to overcome the enemy, not to force a fight, but to assume a yielding and conciliatory attitude. When the enemy proves strong, I just look yielding and simply follow up his movements. I act like a curtain surrounding itself to the pressure of a stone thrown at it. Even a strong rat finds no means to fight me, but the one we had to deal with today has no parallel. It refused to submit to my psychological overpowering, and was not tempted by my manifestation of a yielding psyche. It was a most mysterious creature, the like of which I have never seen it in my life.
What you call a yielding psyche is not in harmony with nature. It is man-made. It is a contrivance worked out in your conscious mind. When you try by means of this to crush the opponent's positive, impassioned, attacking psyche, he is quick enough to detect any sign of psychic wavering which may go on in your mind. The yielding psyche, thus artificially evoked, produces a certain degree of muddiness and obstruction in your mind, which is sure to interfere with acuteness of perception and agility of action. For then nature feels impeded in pursuing its original and spontaneous course of movement. To make nature display its mysterious way of achieving things is to do away with all your own thinking, contriving, and acting. Let nature have her own way. Let her act as it feels in you, and there will be no shadows, no signs, no traces whereby you can be caught. You have then no foes who can successfully resist you. Well, I am a mere cat. Rats are my food. And how can I know about human affairs? But if you permit me to say something further, you must remember that swordsmanship is an art of realizing at a critical moment the reason of life and death. It is not meant just to defeat your opponent. A samurai ought to be always mindful of this fact and discipline himself in a spiritual culture, as well as in the technique of swordsmanship. First of all, therefore, he is to have an insight into the reason of life and death, when his mind is free from thoughts of selfishness. This being attained, he cherishes no doubts, no distracting thoughts. He is not calculating, nor does he deliberate. His spirit is even and yielding, and at peace with the surroundings. He is serene and empty-minded, and thus he is able to respond freely to changes taking place from moment to moment in his environment. On the other hand, when a thought or desire is stirred in his mind, it calls up a world of form. There is I, there is not I, and contradictions ensue. As long as this opposition continues, the way finds itself restricted and blocked. Its free activities become impossible. Your spirit is already pushed into the darkness of death, altogether losing its mysterious native brightness. How can you expect this state of mind to rise and wager your fate against the opponent? Even when you come out victorious, it is no more than accidental and decidedly against the spirit of swordsmanship. Today we have learned much about the way. Let us go now and practice what we have learned.